Hi everybody, it's Erin. I'm back for round 2 of a podcast episode. I was hoping to get this done a bit earlier and get one out sooner, but that didn't happen. Life sometimes gets in the way of doing the things we enjoy. So it's been a little bit, but I'm back and I'm here to talk to you about knitting and some of my other interests, things that I've been watching and listening to and reading. So without further ado, give some introductions. As I said, it's Erin, and my username for Ravelry and for Instagram is Dufferin24. That's Dufferin24. And I'm somewhat of a small channel. I only have like 5 viewers with one episode, so I think that's great. I didn't think I'd get any, but pretty much know all my 5 viewers, and I love all of you. So hi, welcome back. Thanks for coming back to see me. Going to talk about what's on my needles, off my needles, and as I mentioned, some of the things that I've been listening to, podcasts I've listened to, books I've been reading or am reading, and things that I've been watching on YouTube and on our Android box while I'm knitting. So without further ado, I'll get cracking with my first item on the needles, which is Easter themed, as this is Good Friday, taping on Good Friday, March 30th, I believe it is. So I guess I should mention for those who haven't watched the first episode, if there is any newcomers, I'm broadcasting from my home in Nova Scotia, Canada. That's on the east coast of Canada. And like I said, here to show you my knitting for Easter. So I have this little guy already finished. I have 2 little boys, and they're 4 and 2. So they're at kind of a fun age where you can make things for them. They are semi kind of interested in what you are making for them, but they're also growing so fast that it's kind of hard to knit garments and stuff for them because they grow out of it so fast. But fortunately, with 2 boys, knit for one and then hand it down to the next. So the younger guy seems to get all the hand-me-downs, which I don't know how he'll feel about as he gets older, but he's also down for a nap right now, so he could potentially wake up and cause a stir. So if he does do that, we'll just interrupt. My first episode, I had lots of interruptions. My father going by with a snowblower. There's no snow on the ground today, but I would not be surprised if he did interrupt somehow. So we'll see how this goes. So this is my first item to show you what's on my needles. So there's 2 of them. So this is the first one, which is done, and it's a little bunny. He's really cute. I totally messed up the pattern. Realized after the fact when I was making the second one that I had made an error. So I will explain, but I still think he's really cute, and I don't know if you'd even notice unless I told you, because I took him last night to knit night in town and nobody seemed to really know that there was something wrong with his construction. This is the pattern Mini Bunny Loves, and that's by Susan B. Anderson, and it is a paid-for pattern on Ravelry. And it's a very well written pattern. This is the second pattern that I've purchased from her, and I find her patterns very easy to read, very easy to follow, except for when I'm not paying attention and I leave parts of the pattern out. So I saw this pattern featured on another East Coast podcast, which is Sweet Skein of Mine, or O Mine, I think. Sweet Skein of Mine. She has, that's Amanda, and she's in New Brunswick, which is the next province over, and she has a podcast on YouTube and an Etsy shop, and I believe she's also on Instagram as Sweet Skein of Mine. So she featured this on one of her Christmas episodes of her podcast as a project she had knit up really quick as a gift. So I really thought it was really sweet, and I love knitting these little like hand toys, little hand knitted objects for kids. I just think they're so sweet. kids don't really get a lot of use out of them, but they are pretty sweet, and I'm hoping that as they get older, they will appreciate them. I had this conversation with my cousin yesterday about how I hope when my boys get older that they do remember these things that I make for them, as I remember some of the things that my grandmother had made for me. You know, she made all the clothes for my Cabbage Patch dolls and my Barbies, and the Barbie outfits were like small and dainty, and they were just amazingly knit. And at the time when I was a child, I used to think, why can't you go to the store and buy me the Gem and the Rockers outfit that I really want, that neon one for my Barbie. But now as I get older, it's those knitted ones that I have in my heart, and I don't remember the other ones, you know. So I hope that when the kids look back, when they get older, they'll look back fondly on stuff like this and remember that their mom took the time and thought about them the whole time they were making these. So the problem with this bunny that I realized when I started the second one is that when I knit them so far, there's like supposed to be this much more of just regular knitting and then a decrease for his construction. So I basically just did the increase and then moved right to the decrease. So his body should really be a lot longer than it is. That's why his ears are so long. When I was knitting his ears, I'm thinking, these ears are huge. They're so long. His body's so small. But then when I picked up the second one to knit, I realized, okay, missed a whole section of the pattern. Helps to stop and read and not be in such a rush. But I was into my TV program I was watching at the time when I was knitting these, so that's kind of the only explanation I can really have. But I still think he turned out pretty good. And obviously, like, my pom-pom skills can be improved, but I think he's really sweet. So that's for one of my boys. And that one is kind of a stash bust. This whole year, I don't know if you're aware, I don't know if I mentioned it in my last podcast or not, but I'm kind of trying to just knit from stash and knit the stash down. So I've been doing some stash busting and not adding to my stash. If I am making any purchases, I want to do them as a planned purchase of something I definitely am going to knit, instead of just buying yarn that I like and adding it in there, because right now there's a lot in there. It could last me several years, I think, and I still probably wouldn't come close to touching all that's there. So this is another stash bust. So it's a gift and a stash bust. It's awesome. This was, I think it's Croy, Patton's Croy, and I did a swap with a friend here, co-worker friend. She was looking for something that I had, and I said, if you have any sock yarn, I'll trade you, because you can always use it for Cozy Memories blankets or whatever, like heels, toes, and cuffs on anything. So pretty sure it's Patton's Croy. I have no idea what the colorway is, because it didn't come with a band on it. Came already balled up, so it's really pretty. There's a little bit of a halo on it too. I think it's cute, especially for that little project. So the second bunny that I'm making is a stash bust as well, and it's made out of opal sock yarn. And I bought this yarn at Christmas time to make socks for my cousin as a gift. And I did just mention her, so maybe I could introduce her. She'll probably be shy, as she probably will watch this episode. She is on Instagram as Cat's Eye Collective, and she's a crocheter, but she is multi-craftual. She can pretty much do anything. Any craft, anything she puts her mind to, she can do it, and she can do it without a pattern. So she's pretty amazing. If you want to see an amazing craft feed, you should definitely check her out. Cat's Eye Collective, and a lot of her items are for sale. So as mentioned, I bought this yarn at Christmas time to make her a pair of socks, and they turned out lovely, and she loves them. Nice colorway. I bought it at The Loop in Halifax. That's a local yarn shop for me. So I'm not quite sure which opal type this is. It's got the sparkle in it. But it's really nice colorway, and the socks turned out lovely. I think they actually were the nicest pair of socks that I did ever make. So I've made a lot of socks, and a lot of times when I knit stuff I don't like it after the fact, but I really love these. So it's actually, the bunny is turning out pretty cute, the colors. He needs to be stuffed. So he's just getting his body, and because I made an error on the first one, I had to make the same error on the second one. So he's still a work in progress. He needs to be stuffed. I've gotten to the point, I had him at knit night last night to work on, and I realized afterwards that I did not bring the bottom part of the stuffing that I was using. The pattern gives the option to just totally use all fiber fill inside, or to put some pellets, but I don't really have pellets. I'm not really interested in going and buying pellets for just such a small project. So I have improvised in this little guy, and actually they kind of sit pretty good anyways, because you knit these little feet on and they kind of hold them up pretty good. Like the tail and the feet balance them really good. But I improvised with some green lentils. So this is what I used in the bottom. So I'll be stuffing some more in the bottom of this guy, and you kind of do have to knit so far up to get the pellets or the lentils so far into the bottom, because otherwise it's really awkward to try to keep them in there while you're going around and around. So that is my main project right now. Kind of a quick knit, also a stash bust, but it is what is on my needles right now. And of course, as usual, like everything else, I'm down to the last minute doing all these things. So hopefully finish that tonight. Trying to knit them when the kids aren't around so that they don't see and have their surprise spoiled. My next project on the needles is some socks. Oh, and I'm knitting those on some random DPNs that I have. Somebody gifted me something. They're not a name brand. I don't know what they are, but they work awesome. They're nice and long, but not too long. So my next project is some socks for myself, also a stash bust. And I am doing, as I mentioned, another Susan B. Anderson pattern in the Smooth Operator socks. So this is I guess it would technically be the third time that I'm doing this pattern, because as I'll show you later on in the video, I did a smaller pair of socks as something that'll be off my needles. So this is the Susan B. Anderson Smooth Operator sock pattern. Paid for pattern. Awesome pattern. Really thick. I mean, it's super thick. It's got a lot of pages in it, but one section is like a visual tutorial of how to do the sock, and then the next section is just a written one. So it's so well written, so you're not going to mess up anything. I typically knit my socks. I've never knit toe up. I've always knit cuff down, and I learned how to knit socks doing heel flap and gusset. So that kind of is my preferred, because that's what I'm used to, but I'm trying to challenge myself to learn some new skills, do some new things. And when I'm of course doing the striped socks, the point of this pattern is like to be able to not interrupt any of the stripes. So whenever I was doing the heel flap and gusset, of course the striping pattern would get interrupted. It didn't always really bother me, but when I see pictures in my news feed on Instagram of other people doing striping socks, self-striping socks, and you see that the heel place there, it just it looks so perfect. So that's my goal, to get really good at the Afterthought heel. But as I said, this will be I've only done it twice, so this work in progress right now is only my third attempt at trying to do it. So it is a little bit of skill mastery for me. I'm not super good at it. I'll show you what I mean here in a second. So Stash Bust, as I said, this is my yarn. It's got a stellina, it's got a sparkle in it. It is the Cozy Knitter Berrylicious. And this was a Yarn of the Month Club colorway in 2016. So I'm pretty sure her colorways are like exclusive for a year, I think, to club members. Like general public can't purchase them. So I'm pretty sure this colorway is probably up for purchase now. But I'll show you my heel. So I had this skein of yarn. It came as a skein, and then it came with a mini skein for the heels, toes, and cuffs. But I just want to do all self-striping yarn through the whole thing. I didn't want to do it with any heels, toes, and cuffs. I just want to do the whole stripes as you see featured on the cover of the pattern. I really like the look of those. So I had already knit a baby hat with some of the skein. So I had not a full skein left. I think it is 100 grams, comes in 100 grams. So I didn't have a full 100 grams. So I've chosen to try to use up all of the remaining yarn from the skein by doing short socks. So as you can see, these ones are still on, this one is still on the needle because this is like all I have left after dividing the remainder of the skein in half. This is all I have left. So I'm pretty close to the toe. Like this is, I've stopped to where I'm going to start my decreases for my toes, but I'm pretty sure that's not going to cut it. So instead of putting the mini skein in there, I started the second sock, which I had more when it's a long story, but I had more yarn for this one. So this one, take it out of its cozy. And there goes a needle. This one has a little bit more, and this one is getting up there. I think I'll have one more pink repeat and then this part to add on to the top, and then I will start the toe decrease. So I might do pretty good. And then I wound off 2 7-gram balls for the heels. So the heels not in this one yet, but I put my waste yarn in for the heel placement. The heel is in this one, and I have a little bit left still from that 7 grams. So I'm hoping that once I have the heel in the second sock and I've knitted more to the toe for the decrease, and maybe even potentially done the decrease on this second sock, that there will be enough somewhere left over to finish the toe on the first sock. And then I'll have myself a pair of shorty socks. And then I'll have a complete skein out of my stash. I feel like I'm saying, trying to keep straight here what's going on. So the problem that I have with the Afterthought heel is probably the problem that everybody has with the Afterthought heel, and I'm hoping that it'll come with more practice. This is the third time doing the heel, and it's just where you're trying to pick up the right stitches to make sure that they flow together and that there's no gaps or holes. So it's not always the smoothest for me. I do have a gap, a hole on this side. That can always be remedied afterwards. I always seem to get the one gap on one side and not on the other, but that can definitely be fixed up afterwards with a little bit of weaving in ends is what I've usually mastered that with. But I'm hoping that the more I do the afterthought heels, the smoother it will become, and I'll be able to recognize stitches more easily to be picking them up and pulling that hole tight. So I'll show you, and you can see that it's not super smooth. They're supposed to kind of flow into the next stitches, like you can see it's going up, and then it kind of picks up there. It's going up, and it kind of picks up there. But look, you can see right through my sock. That's actually the good side. This is the bad side. It's only my third attempt, so it's still pretty decent, and it'll come. It's a new challenge, learning something new. That's what keeps your craft fresh, you know. Kind of gets boring if you're always doing the same thing and you're wicked awesome at it. Can't be great at everything. So that's my second whip, my second project that's on the needles. And I have a couple other projects that are on the needles, but they haven't gotten really any love or affection, so there's really no point in it, whipping out the whips to show you. So I'll move right on to what's off my needles. So that's what's on my needles, and now I'll show you what's off my needles. I am not super techie, so I am hoping that I might be able to insert some photos in between to show you some stuff. But if I can't, I apologize, but I will give it a go. So I'm just going to grab my first item, which was off the needles, then it was back on the needles, and now it's off the needles again, and I'm happy with it. There's still a couple things that I probably would change about it, but I'm pretty happy with how it turned out, and I'm pretty happy that I challenged myself with something new. So grab this here, and you would have seen this in the last video if you watched the first video. I did show it there. So this is a sweater that I made for my oldest son, and it turned out really nice, but it turned out really short. So I guess the biggest thing to keep in mind when knitting the garments for kids is that kids grow up and not out. So it's important to make them long enough and not wide enough. I mean, it's important that they're not super tight on there, but my boys are pretty lean, so they don't really have the need for a super wide garment. So this is like all a learning curve, but my son loves it, and he thinks he looks pretty spiffy in it, so that's the best thing that it could be. So this is a, as I showed you before, it's a Sirdar sweater, and I think the reason I did a gauge swatch, which is a new skill to me too. Like, I'm not a huge fan of doing the gauge swatches. You just want to jump in there and do the knitting and get it on with. You don't want to do a gauge swatch. Well, that's how I find it to be anyways, but I did a gauge swatch for this project as well as the vest that I made for his brother, and I actually was like pretty pleased, because instead of just hoping that it's gonna turn out the way you want it to, you like have a pretty good idea that it should turn out because you've done the swatch. So the gauge swatch is really reassuring. But I think what took place is that the pattern is for DK weight yarn, and I used a worsted, like a light worsted, I guess, but I did take that into account when I did the gauge swatch, but I think that's probably what the pattern problem was when it came out. I'm not really good at switching up yarns. Like, if a pattern calls for a specific yarn, I like to try to follow with that specific yarn. I'm not super confident at changing up yarns, and I really admire knitters that can just do that. Maybe someday as my skills grow, but this is a Sirdar pattern, and it's it should be made with the Sirdar Snuggly DK, and the pattern is number 2062. So this is the sweater here. So I made the vest version, and then this is a side button version, and then this is the sweater that I made for my son, and it turned out wider than longer. So with some help from a friend, some advice, she pointed me in the direction of a blog, which I cannot remember off the top of my head, but it's all got every technical issue of knitting concerns that you would ever wonder about or need to know about. I'll have to mention it in my next episode, or maybe see if I can put it in some notes, because if you wondered about it, if you need help with something, it's there. So the problem, as I said, that the sweater was short, so I believe that it was stopped right, if I can put this up here. This is where it ended, somewhere here, I think right there, maybe, yeah, right here. So I had to cut it open, pick up all the stitches, and rip the rib off. All the ribbing came off because this ribbing was up here. So then I had to pick up all these and then knit the pattern again, and then knit the ribbing back on. So this chunk here is what has been added to the sweater. So it was really short, like really short. It just kind of just fell at his waistline, like where his pants, the top of his pants. I thought maybe blocking would help that, stretch it out, but the yarn that I used is Patons Canadiana, and it is a 100% acrylic yarn, and that is in the Fool's Gold colorway. So the acrylic really doesn't have much give. Like, I blocked it to extreme, I stretched it out, but it pretty much just bounced right back to its original shape, which wasn't helpful. But I've added a little bit of length to it, so it fits way better now. It's still a bit wide on him, but it fits way better now, and he, like I said, he loves it. So that was a totally new thing for me, cutting open a sweater. Like, I'm not even sure I've even I've never knitted a adult size sweater, so it was pretty scary to have all those live stitches on the go, but it was fairly straightforward, one step at a time, and it got done. So off the needles, back on the needles, and now off the needles. And like I said, if I can find that blog, and if I can find out how to add it to the down bar, I will do that, because it's a really great resource. So that's that one. The next item that is off the needles is a very small item. A little bit of a stash bust. I was attempting to make a little toy. I love knitted toys, as I said, for a new coworker who's having a new baby at the time. She has since had her baby. And it just didn't turn out the way that I wanted it to. So I kind of got disinterested in it and knit a different toy for them, which was the Lion brand Lion. That is on their website. I think it's just Amigurumi, or however you pronounce that, Lion. And it's on their website. It's a free pattern, and it's made in Vanna's Choice. So these are the colors. And this yarn is a great value. You get a ton of it. It comes in every color under the rainbow. It's 100% acrylic, and it makes the cutest little toys. So Vanna's Choice That's black. And then this is the mustard. And this one is terracotta. So with these three colors, the lion. So the lion is the main part, and then the terracotta is the mane around him. And that has gone off as a gift, so I do not have it here to show to you, but I'm hoping that I will be able to insert the picture so you can see, because I've made that project probably about 7-8 times, and it is adorable. I've pretty much made it for every baby that I know, and it's a super easy knit. It's like knitting a sock and then putting a mane around it. It's so easy, and it's super cute. And that yarn, like, really, like, you could make a ton. Like, you could make 2, maybe 3 out of the one ball, and then these accent colors they'll last you forever. So great little quick knit, and a great little gift if you are ever stuck or want to show off your knitting skills. So as I said, I was going to make them another toy because their last name is Fox, so I thought it would be really cute to knit a little fox, but just it didn't turn out the way I wanted it to. It wasn't going very well, so I kind of tossed it to the side, and then I forgot about it, and then when I picked up a knitting bag to just kind of tidy up and clean out, I realized that it was still in there. So I did finish it, and it did turn out pretty good. It turned out pretty cute. I have my little show notes here so I can reference the pattern for that. It is Get Foxy, and that is by the Bushcrafter, and that's on a website, and it is free, so you can use any scraps, any colors, and it's just a charted, the pattern is just a chart, so it's just changes up the colors. So I think he's so cute. And I think the ears on the pattern on her website that she added were felted, but I just kind of knit these little ones on, and I don't think I did the best stitch up job around the bottom, and that's kind of why I tossed it. Obviously my color work skills are like lacking. I need a lot more experience in color work, not gonna deny it, but I think he's super cute. So it's a great way to use up like little scraps, little stash, and this guy is made out of some leftovers from a baby blanket I knit last summer for my friend, and this is Wendy Chunky 50% pure merino wool is the white color. I don't think it has a name. And then the terracotta color is also Wendy, and it is called Serenity, and it's also chunky. And then I think the black is just the Vanna's Choice. So it's just stitched flat, sewn up, got some ears on him, and he's stuffed with some fiber fill. So I'm just gonna, I have a box set aside where I'm just kind of making little hand toys and little hats to send to our children's hospital, because they're always looking for those sort of donations. And that little guy was made on 4mm Knit Pro Zings. These ones up here. So that is 2 small projects off the needles. Stash bust, that was no new addition to my stash, so that's a good thing. The next item off the needles was something I just mentioned before. I will grab it. They are my second pair of smooth operator socks, and they are for my son. And they turned out super cute. And he did wear them once. They've been washed, but little boys are not the cleanest characters. So the soles are a little bit not as bright as they were when he first put them on. But these are them. Smooth Operator, and the yarn is Cozy Knitter, self-striping. All her yarn is self-striping. This is the Cozy Knitter You're So Foxy. And second pair of Smooth Operator socks that I ever did. So as you can see, same problem as before, the heel joint is not super smooth. Like it doesn't even flow into any stitch. Just well, this one kind of does. Nope, flows into nowhere. Nowhere land. Look at that. Right into nowhere land. What about this one? Oh, almost. This one looks like it almost went somewhere. It's coming up, coming up, coming up, coming up. Yep. And that one. Yeah. And this one. So I'll just keep practicing. Maybe I'll get it. Maybe I won't. This one I did use the contrasting mini skein that came with it for the cuff, heel, and toe. But as you can see, when he wears it from the top, when I took a photo of it and put it on my Instagram, you only see the top. So like it looks so smooth. But then when you look at the bottom, you can see that I didn't put the heel in the best spot when knitting it because this color ran right into the other color. Like it's the same color and it just ran right into the stripe. So I don't really notice that stripe there. It just kind of ends. But he loves them and he wore them to school, and he's in preschool and his preschool teachers or play school teachers loved his socks. So I was thinking that was great. They loved his little socks, and they're so cute on his feet. They're like the perfect fit. So I'll definitely be making him some more socks. And like I said, great thing about knitting for him is that if the garments manage to survive him, then maybe they'll be passed on to his brother. But this was to do a stash bust. And last time on the previous episode, I was trying to knit this skein of yarn up for myself, but I just wasn't feeling it. Like I had knit the whole the whole leg, and then I had put the heel in, and I was just about to start picking up the stitches to do the heel, and I just stopped. Like I did not want to knit anymore on it, which is not like me because I love knitting socks and I always have a pair of socks on the go, but I just did not want to do it. And he, in the meantime, asked for slipper socks. So this colorway it's such a boy colorway. Like it's colors I love. I love these colors. Definitely not specifically for boy, but when I was knitting it and looking at it, I just kept thinking how perfect this would be for the boys in your life that you love, or the men that you love. So when he asked for the slipper socks, Mommy, I want some slipper socks. Off they came. I unraveled my project, I frogged it, and knit him some. So those are super cute, super proud of those, but I still have a pretty good amount of yarn left from this skein. So if those ones don't survive him, I might just knit his little brother some anyways, because perfect size, perfect amount of yarn I think for him. That's one more project off the needles. The next project off the needles was my Christmas cast on, no, I didn't do Christmas Eve cast on, I did Christmas Day cast on. And it was a cast on I was waiting to do for a while. I was looking forward to it, and I featured it in my last video, but now it is done and I will grab it. This is the Mini Madness shawl by Angie Kimmel, K-I-M-E-L, and that is on Ravelry, and it is a paid for pattern. It's easy peasy pattern. It's a great stash bust. If you have lots of scrap yarn, if you don't have plans for it, this is a perfect way to use them up. And this is the second time that I did make this shawl. I made this shawl before for my mother, and I used scraps of scraps. Scraps of minis is what I used. So I had a bunch of minis that I had gotten from different swaps with different people, and there's still I had used all of it for my Cozy Memories blanket, and there was still pretty like good significant varying sizes left. So you just don't want to toss it out. The yarn is so beautiful. Like, it's even just beautiful if you want to use it for decoration in a bowl. Anyways, so I took all of those, not all of them, but to make the one for my mother, I used all scraps of the minis, and it turned out beautiful. So this was a pattern I wanted to make for myself, and my friend Trisha, who is TLC Stitches on Instagram, you should definitely check out her Instagram, because she is a beautiful knitter and she has a beautiful Instagram feed. It's amazing. She had sent me 10 or 12, I guess it must be 12, let me count. 12 10-gram mini skeins. Each one was dyed by Lolo Did It, and she is also on Instagram, and she has her own website where she sells her own hand-dyed yarn, and they're beautiful. And the pop culture references to her colorways are awesome, like so spot on. So she had sent me 12 10-gram mini skeins, and that was in the fall, and I was planning to cast that on for my Christmas cast on. So I did that Christmas Day. I cast on the Mini Madness shawl, and I did finish it, and it's got each and every little bit of yarn that she sent me was used in this shawl. And I started at this end. Just to give you an idea of the colorways: Honeydukes, Simple Man, Hippo for St. Patty's Day, Scrunchies and Spandex, Hippo for Valentine's Day, Blackberry Jam, Lucille, Droids, The Burrow, Steel Magnolias, 16 Candles, and Dirty Dancing. Those are the 12 mini skein colorways that are featured in this. And they're all so beautiful. So it's a garter stitch and a eyelet shawl. Just giving you some close-ups of the colors. Right to the tip. Getting a little blown out there from my window. I've gotten so many compliments on this shawl. It goes with everything because it has so many colors in it. It just goes with everything. You can wear it and dress up anything. And my absolute favorite color that's in there, colorway, is this one right here in the eyelet. That is the Droids colorway. Kind of hard to see. See if I can get it. It's got different flecks of different colors, greens and reds, and oh, I love it. I really would like to make a cardigan for myself, like the featherweight cardigan, and I'm constantly in my head trying to find the color that I want to do for that, because if I'm going to knit a specific thing, I don't want to just add a bunch of yarn to my stash. I want to make a purchase just specifically for that, with those intentions. So this is one of the colors that I am thinking, because it would just be like so versatile. It would go with so many things. So pretty in love with that one. I wear it quite frequently because it goes with so many different things. So I definitely recommend that pattern as a stash buster and as a easy peasy knit. Like if you're doing some TV knitting, it's a great pattern and you memorize it fairly quickly. I think that just about is it for what's off my needles, except for this last item, which I'm wearing. And I did not want to take off first thing. So this is the Gradient Wrap by Fleece Artist. So it's a kit. And I purchased that at LK Yarns in Halifax, but I'm pretty sure you could probably purchase it online as well. So Fleece Artist dyed the yarn. It's BFL Sport, and the pattern is by Todd Wick Studios. And that comes in the kit. The pattern comes with the yarn. I'm just going to get it unhooked here to give you a show of it. It knit up super fast. It's a great pattern, garter stitch. It's asymmetrical, and pretty much as usual with everything that I knit, I didn't like it when it first came off the needles. It just, everything that I knit, I'm not sure. I'm not sure if I like it. But then once I wore it, I loved it. The colors in it are so springy, and I love the color blocks. I think the reason why at first I wasn't sure if I really liked it is because I think I mentioned last time the kit that I wanted was like a true gradient, I guess, a true gradient, where it was like all blues from dark to light. Or there was another one that was all purples from dark to light or light to dark. And that was what I had in my mind. But when I went to the yarn shop, this was the kit that they had. There was a brown one as well, which I think, now that I think back, at the time I really didn't want the brown, but now that I think back, I'm thinking the brown would have been really nice. Nice neutral, but this is, I love it. It turned out so nice. So springy. And different, like it's just different. Different from other things that I've seen. So that is my final off the needles project. I have a couple plans for knitting that just kind of crept up on me. It must be the spring kind of gets you in the mood for things, or gives you new ideas, gives you new life, gives you some energy. These are specific plans that I will be making purchases to knit. They won't be stash bust, but they won't be items that are added to my stash. They'll just come home and hopefully be knit right up. So last night was it's not last night that I made, I guess last night was the night that I made the decision that it's going to happen. It's something that's been in my mind forever, like in my queue in my mind that I want to knit, and that is one of the Hudson Bay Company blankets. So we have a little cabin, a little camp that will be put down in the woods. It's in the process of being constructed, and I want to make a Hudson Bay Company blanket for the cabin. So I'll be doing that probably out of acrylic yarn, maybe some Super Saver or the Canadians, Patents Canadiana, just to be conscious of finances. I had to pause my video there because the door opened. I thought it was my husband coming to tell me something to interrupt, but he just kind of quietly like opened the door and stuck his arm in and put a coffee on the floor. So he just got me a coffee from Tim Hortons. I'm gonna go get it. Here I am getting all frustrated at him interrupting me and him putting a little coffee on the floor for me. Eek! I love coffee, and I do enjoy Tim Hortons. I'm not like totally addicted to it. Sometimes it agrees with me and sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes it's like super strong, but I love the idea of going to get a coffee at Tim Hortons. It's like a routine, a ritual. I love it. I enjoy it. So perfect. Okay. So yeah, I'll probably be getting the Patents Canadiana, the same yarn as this yarn here, just because it's economical It's local. It's in my local yarn shop, and they have so many colors. Like, I think that they'll have the right colors for that blanket, which is pretty color specific. Like, I've seen on Ravelry that there's a lot of projects that have been featured with the yellow, navy, green, and red. But for the true Hudson Bay Company blanket, like, the colors are pretty specific. So I'm hoping to find the colors I'm looking for and be able to make that for our camp. So it probably won't be a massive blanket. I'm even half kind of considering, I'm not a crocheter at all, but I'm half, like, I have crocheted, but I'm half considering maybe making it by crochet just to make it go faster, because I really want to get it done. I really want it. And I'll probably be making it like more or less a fairly large lap blanket, not like a massive queen size quilt or anything like that. So that's what's in the plans. I might even entertain the Red Heart Super Saver yarn. It depends on what I can get and what colors I find. My next plan is to make a cardigan for myself, which I am so excited about. I haven't knit like a true garment for myself. Like a sock knitter. I've been making a ton of shawls. That kind of just started. But I've never really made a sweater or anything like that for myself, like some clothing. And I really, really, really want to. Like, I want something to go out in and to wear and to be like, there's nothing better than when people are like, oh, I love your scarf. And you're like, thanks, I made it. Like, it feels awesome. Like, you don't want to brag, you don't want to seem like you're bragging, but it's pretty proud. Like, somebody likes your stuff and you put your heart and soul and hours of your life into it. So you're like, thank you, I made it. It's me, I did it. So I really want to do the cardigan. And there's a couple that I have been thinking about, as I mentioned, the featherweight one. But I just came across one online that I am absolutely in love with. Like, I fell in love with it instantly, and I ordered the yarn and the pattern to make that happen. So if I can, as I mentioned, I will insert a picture of the cardigan here because it's gorgeous. My friend Angela, who is Rainbow Ange, and last time on the previous episode I spelt her Instagram name incorrectly, so it's Rainbow with a 0, RAINB0WANGE, Rainbow Ange on Instagram. And she also has her own yarn shop in Wales, in Penarth, Wales. Hope I said that right. I apologize if I didn't. She, as I said, has her own yarn shop. She has her own YouTube channel, which is Yarn and Yarns, and that is the name of her yarn shop. So on her most recent episode this week, she let us all know that she's now a stockist of West Yorkshire Spinners yarn. So on my Instagram feed, she had featured this particular line by West Yorkshire Spinners, which is Gems, I believe it's called, GEMS. So I was on the website for West Yorkshire Spinners, just kind of perusing the different projects and patterns that they have, and this, not even realizing that the pattern that I was attracted to was the Gems yarn that she was featuring on her Instagram page for her yarn shop. So it just, like, it was fate. It's meant to happen. So the pattern is called the Harriet Cardigan, HARR, I think it's RRIET cardigan, and it's I think it's a three-quarter length sleeve, and it is gorgeous. Like, the colors are gorgeous. It's a fire opal and granite, so it's a gray and a bright orange, and oh, I'm in love. I cannot wait to touch this yarn and to knit this cardigan. Like, I'll definitely be doing the gauge swatch maybe even twice, to make sure that it is going to come out, because it is gorgeous. I want it to be perfect, but we'll see. I'm just so excited. So those are my plans for upcoming knits, along with some continued stash busting. I have 2 shawls on the needles, and I have my Cozy Memories blanket, which I might feature again in another episode. It hasn't really gotten a lot of love lately, but there has been quite a big amount of yarn being added to that needs to be knit into my blanket. So I'm kind of in my head also looking forward to doing maybe a week or something, like just some steady knitting on that to see the blanket grow, because I am hoping to make that blanket like a queen size version for our bed to have. So it is like the width is currently suitable for a queen size bed for the 60 inches, but the length really has a lot of squares to go. So, and I do have a lot of skeins that need to be put into it. So that's kind of in my plans to be working on that, and I would like to finish up the 2 shawls that are on there on the needles, and that's kind of about it right now. I had a request from my neighbor for 2 pair of socks. So she's a knit-worthy person for sure, and I knit her a pair of socks for Christmas, and she absolutely loves them, and she requested that I knit her 2 more. So maybe I might do that up as Mother's Day gift for her, as she is kind of like a godmother, neighbor type thing. She's like a member of my family. I knit her, I can't even remember what the pattern is, but it was a Miss Marple pattern, and I did a knit along, an Agatha Christie knit along at Christmas time with the In a Pickle knitting podcast, and that was fun. So I think I might do those again for her. So that's in my plans for the future as well, for future knitting, but that's about it. Maybe do up some more toys, a couple more baby hats, just to add to the donation box. So that's pretty much it for what I have for knitting right now. Now I'm gonna give just a little brief talk about what I've been reading and what I've been watching and listening to. So reading is kind of my other hobby and my other resolutions. So for my enjoyment time for myself, I knit, and the resolution, as I said, was to knit down the stash. My other resolution is to try to read a book a month. I really enjoy reading, but I just don't make time for it. I make more time for knitting, and reading, I'll say, oh, I'm gonna read a book before I go to sleep, and I probably read about 2 sentences and I'm out like a light, and my husband peels my glasses off my head and turns out the light. So I really do enjoy reading, and when I do get into a book, I just don't want to put it down. So it's to make the time to do it, the commitment to do it. So after Christmas, I did finish a book I was reading, which was The Magpie Murders, and that was awesome. I can't remember the author's name off the top of my head right now, and the book is Gone to a Friend, lent to a friend to read. And I thoroughly really also enjoy visiting bookshops. Who doesn't love going to yarn shops? Like, it's awesome. The dreams, the possibilities, like holding things in your arms as you walk around the store, and like that's awesome. And that's how I feel when I get in a bookshop. Like, oh, I could read this book, and oh, this book is so good, and just holding the books. But I really, really enjoy that. So it's therapeutic. So going to the bookshop and making a purchase and taking the book home and nobody's touched it, and turning the pages and listening to the page turn and feeling the paper between your fingers as you turn it, like, it's all an experience. It's more than just the story that you're reading, but the story is a big part of it. So I did finish that book. So that was probably January. February, I read another book that I went to the store and purchased and pretty much read it over a weekend. And I'm a really big Agatha Christie fan. And I hadn't read any of her Tommy and Tuppence series. So these were, and I hadn't seen any videos or movies that featured them, so I didn't know the stories. The stories are completely new to me, so I'm kind of focused on reading that. I think there's only five. There's 5 books in that series, so I'm kind of focused on reading them in sequence to get them all. And the stories follow the husband and wife, Tommy and Tuppence, over the course of their lives. So it's pretty interesting. The book that I did read by them, that featured them, by Agatha Christie, was The Secret Adversary, and it was really good. It was such a page turner. I loved it. I couldn't wait to get to the end, and my mind kept flicking back and forth between who I thought had done it, so I couldn't make up my mind, but that was a really enjoyable read, and I pretty much read that over the weekend. And I started a book back when, I can't remember, maybe before Christmas, maybe after Christmas, I don't know, but I've made a resolution to read it and finish it. I think it came from my mom somewhere, like my mom's a huge reader, and she always has lots of good books on her shelves. I think it was hers, or maybe I bought it at our hospital, has a gift shop, and they take used book donations and sell them for super cheap, like $2, $3. And I might have picked that one up there. I'm not quite sure, but this book is so good. It's not like a super duper page turner. It's not a thriller, but I knew when I started reading it there was going to be tears, and I finally got to the point where there have been tears, and I was awake the other morning reading at like 5 o'clock before my family gets up, and there was definitely tears. There was tears and there was snot, and they were coming from me. So it's The Light Between Oceans, which is also a movie. So I think that's actually where I first saw it advertised, was as a movie. But I haven't seen the movie. I'll probably watch it after I finish the book, but the movie's never as good as the book, I don't find anyways. But it's by M.L. Stedman, and it's a really good story. And I'm glad that I did pick it up, because I was thinking yesterday, like, when you do read stories, when you do read books, they get in your heart and soul and memory, and the characters really do. Like, if it's a good book, they live there forever. And I think if I didn't, I'm not done yet, I'm 200 some odd pages in, so only got like 100 pages to go or so, but I think that if I didn't read this book, that my soul wouldn't be complete without these people living in there. So, love it. Good book. My next plans for books is The Couple Next Door, which I can't remember the author's name right now, but she has 2 books, The Couple Next Door, and I can't remember what the other one is, but that's my next plan, and I actually picked them both up at the bookstore yesterday and walked around with them like I was gonna purchase them, and then I put them back on the shelf because I'm on a budget. So I bought Curious George's Easter book instead for my boys. So that's what I'm reading, and what I'm watching on TV. Well, I sometimes watch a lot of TV. We mostly watch CBC. We only get like a couple channels because we have Netflix and an Android box. But what I've been watching is on the Android box, and it is Endeavour Morris, and it is so good. I love it. Very clever, very intriguing. There's a lot going on, and I'm almost, I think I have 2 more episodes to go in the most recent season. I think there's 4 seasons, 4 or 5 seasons. I hope that might be 6, but I think it's 4, and I only have 2 episodes to go, and I think I might go back and rewatch them all again, because I think there's a lot of other things going on that I could pick up on again. It's so good. My all-time favorite drama show is The The Sopranos, and I have all of those on DVD, and I've watched them multiple times because I find every time that I had watched them, there was so much more that I picked up on. There were so many other stories that were going on inside things, so I definitely am going to watch Endeavour again. Just introduced to a new podcast by my cousin, who I previously mentioned earlier, and that is Lulu Loves, and it's a crochet podcast. I'm not a crocheter, as I said, but I really enjoy her podcast. So I've watched the first episode, so that was I think she has 11 episodes, and I watched the most recent one. I think she also has a blog, and her name is Emma Escott, and Lulu Loves. So I will be going back and watching all those again. And a lot of times, if there's nothing, like no current episodes released for my podcast that I like to follow, I will listen to a podcast on my phone. So I mostly listen to CBC podcasts, which the CBC is the Canadian Broadcasting Council, something. I think. I can't believe I'm Canadian and I don't know what the CBC stands for. Anyway, they have a lot of different podcasts available to the public, and the one that I have been listening to and I really enjoy, there is four seasons, I think. I think this is the fourth one. Is Someone Knows Something, or SKS, and it's hosted by David Ridgen, and he's an investigative reporter. And I have listened to the first season, the second season, a bit of the third. I haven't listened to it all yet. And I've just listened to the fifth season, which is investigating 1990s mail bombing murder of a gentleman in Ontario. And it's so good. It's so chilling. There's only, I think, 5 episodes. I think 4 or 5 episodes that have been released of that season. And in one of the episodes, the victim's daughter speaks about how, people might think this is just drama, like a story on TV, but this is our lives. And it's like, it's just so haunting to think, it's just crazy to think that they have lived that. Anyways, I do enjoy listening to podcasts when I am knitting, because a lot of the times my husband will be watching shows that I'm not particularly interested in, so I'll just throw the headphones on and listen to some podcasts. That's about it for me for today. I hope I didn't bore you too much. I hope I talked a bit more about knitting. My first episode, I think I was so nervous. Not that I'm much more relaxed today, but super nervous to be talking in front of a camera to potentially nobody. But at least today I know I have maybe like 5 people watching. So I realized last time that I probably didn't talk. I want to talk about knitting, and I want to talk more about projects and yarns and techniques and stuff. So I'm hoping that this time I did talk more in depth about knitting. And if anybody has any pointers about picking up the stitches for the Afterthought heel, I've watched a couple videos, so they are helpful. I've watched a lot of tutorials on YouTube, so I think it'll come with some practice, but so far not going too bad. Learning some new skills. So until next time, I don't know when that'll be. It's been a while since in between these two, so I could have another episode next week. It just could be 6 months from now. Just kind of depends when I can get a quiet house, so we will see. But until then, I hope sparks fly off your needles and lots of projects come on and off. So take care. See you, everybody. Bye.